we're gathered here tonight as for an evening of unity, for an evening of understanding, for an evening of dialogue, for an evening of healing. There's been a lot of tension, racial tension, and other sorts of tensions that have been brewing, certainly in the last period of time. And it behooves all of us to do whatever we can to bring us all together. We just read in last week's Torah portion about the passing of the great Aaron, the Kohen, the high priest, the first high priest of the Jewish people. And the Torah tells us that in the aftermath of Aaron's passing, the entire Jewish nation mourned his passing for 30 days. The commentaries point out that why is it that all of the entire nation mourned Aaron's passing, something that we don't find by others? By Moses, for example, it says only the men mourned his passing, whereas when it comes to Aaron, everyone mourned the passing, and the commentators explain. Our sages tell us that Aaron was dedicated to living a life in pursuit of creating peace between individuals. So when Aaron noticed that people were quarreling or there was some sort of discord, some sort of disharmony, disunity, he was not complacent. He didn't sit back and say, look, it's not my deal. It's not my issue. It's not me. I have no problem with anybody. I have no beef with anybody. So you know what? Not my issue. Let them sort it out. That's not what he did. Rather, what he did was he invested himself in ensuring that there would be peace between the individuals. And this becomes a hallmark and a legacy teaching for all of us. It says in Pirkei Avot, Ethics of Our Fathers, Havim et Talmidav shel Aaron, be of the disciples of Aaron, love peace and pursue peace, love all creations, and draw them close to purpose, to Torah. So the message of all of this is, and my opening message for this evening, is the importance of fostering unity, peace, and healing amongst all of us. It's not someone else's problem. It's not someone else's business. It's our business. And so when I saw Dr. Laz and crew, the Reverend Chandler, Dr. Green, TJ, and Yuri going around speaking, when I say going around, virtually going around and speaking, various communities around the country and I'm sure probably around the world. So I was inspired to say we have to bring this to our community here in Atlanta. It's so important that we have the opportunity to have these conversations about what it means to bring people together, how to better understand others, and who better to speak on this topic than individuals that have been in the trenches, individuals that have done the work, individuals that haven't just talked about or posted on Facebook about the value of unity, but have actually done the work to bring dialogue into diverse communities and to bring diverse communities together. So that's all by way of introduction. The setting of much of tonight's discussion is going to be 1991, early 1990s Brooklyn. Imagine Brooklyn in the early 90s. I mean, that's Brooklyn the way you imagine Brooklyn to be. Today, Brooklyn, are you kidding me? $3 million houses. What kind of Brooklyn is that? But back in the day, Brooklyn was Brooklyn. And back in the early 90s, there was a lot of tension in Brooklyn. The Crown Heights riots hit in the summer of 1991. And in the aftermath, individuals stepped up. Individuals that are with us here tonight stepped up and stepped in and put themselves in, leaned in to say, we are going to create something better for our community. We are going to make a difference. We're going to bring people together. We're not going to just sit back and allow things to happen. We're not just going to watch things happen. We're going to make things happen. And so in the aftermath of the Crown Heights riots, these individuals got together to foster dialogue, to create an organization called Project Cure that deals with racial tension and brings people together, creates dialogue, first and foremost, creating dialogue and understanding, healing, and unity. So without further ado, well, I think a little further ado, because I want to thank all of our panelists for being here tonight, all of our participants for leading this conversation. I'm just going to do a little bit of moderating, and then I'm going to step out and allow the story to speak for itself. I'll prompt with some questions. You'll all have the opportunity, all of the participants on this, this event will have the opportunity to ask questions, but I ask of you that if you are a participant, please, the first line of questioning should be always in the chat. Please leave yourself muted and write the questions in the chat, and for a very simple reason. The moment a lot of mics become unmuted, it becomes very, there's a lot of sound ambiance, and it becomes difficult to hear. So first ask the questions in the chat, and we'll get to the questions. Maybe at the end, we'll have some verbal Q&A, some opportunity for that. But first, write in the chat box. Dr. Laz, we're ready to roll? All right, you should be able to unmute yourself. Let's ask all the panelists to unmute themselves. So Dr. Laz, Reverend Chandler, let's see, Dr. Green, unmute yourself, please. TJ, and I don't see Yuri. Maybe I'm missing something. No, maybe I don't.
It'll be on soon, Rabbi. Perfect.
Okay, so let's do some quick intros. I'm going to do some bios. I know we did a quick intro, but let's do some bios. Their bios are rich, and so indulge me. I'm going to read from the bios. Dr. David Lazarson is the director of Project Cure, the author of 6 books, including Sharing Turf: Race Relations After the Crown Heights Riots. The book, Sharing Turf, was used to write the screenplay for the movie entitled Crown Heights, which stars Howie Mandel, your favorite Jewish. What is he? He's what is Howie Mandel? Which reality show is he on?
He's on America's Got Talent.
America's Got Talent. Your favorite Jewish America's Got Talent visionary. So Howie Mandel played Dr. Laz in the movie Crown Heights. Dr. Laz has received the Teacher of the Year award from 2 different public school systems in Buffalo, New York, and in Broward County. So we're talking about from the top to the bottom of the East Coast. And in 2008, he was one of 5 educators to be inducted in the Teachers National Hall of Fame. He currently runs an award-winning music therapy program for the South Florida Public Schools. He and his wife, Gittel, have 7 children, and they live in Miami. So welcome, Dr. Laz.
Thank you.
All right, some more bios and intros. Dr. Richard Green is the director of the Crown Heights Youth Collective. He's a community activist, and he was selected by the New York City Mayor's Office to function as the liaison from the African-American community to meet with the Lubavitch Hasidic community after the riots of 1991. Recipient of numerous civic and national awards, he and his wife, Myra, live in Crown Heights and have 2 children, and he was featured in the Showtime movie, the aforementioned movie, entitled Crown Heights. Reverend Paul Chandler is the assistant director of the Jackie Robinson Center for Physical Culture. He's a community activist, co-director of Project Cure, co-singer in the racial harmony music group Dr. Laz and the Cure. He's an ordained minister, recipient of numerous civic and national awards in community relations and racial harmony. He and his wife, Gloria, have several children and currently live in Far Rockaway, New York. Featured in the Showtime movie Crown Heights, Project Cure's music group have opened for Al Green, the Manhattans, the Winans, and played for the U.S. Congress and for cities and universities across the globe. TJ Moses. Welcome, TJ. One of the original youth leaders of Project Cure, TJ started with the group at the age of 16. Together with his sidekick and fellow rapper and dancer, Yuri Simon, they quickly assumed these unique, positive role models for their peers and community. TJ is a community activist and organizer and has received several awards for community service and building positive race relations. He lives in New Hampshire with his partner, and they have several children. Okay, so welcome, TJ. And when Yuri gets on, we may not do a bio then, but he'll get on when he gets on, and we'll enjoy his input and his insights very soon. All right, so I'd like to begin. I'd like to open the evening with setting a little bit of the context and asking a question. And this is, of course, open to our panelists. So let's talk about 1991. Let's talk about Brooklyn, 1991, specifically the Crown Heights section of Brooklyn. So I was a younger man then. It was before my bar mitzvah. I was 12 years old in 1991. And I remember, I grew up in Pittsburgh, so I remember the riots, but they weren't, it wasn't in my backyard. So I'd like to hear, Dr. Laz, let's start with you. What was the atmosphere of Crown Heights like? What led to the riots? What was brewing under the surface, and what bubbled up on top of the surface to lead to the riots? We know that riots, they don't come from nowhere. What set the stage? What precipitated the Crown Heights riots in '91?
Okay, thank you, Rabbi. I am going to actually, because I know that Richard and Paul are both going to be leaving a few minutes early. They have some obligations coming up. So I'm going to turn that one over to Richard and Paul, and then I'll jump in, after they've spoken a little bit about that. Okay, but I want to thank you so much for hosting us, and the fact that you're all here is beautiful, and we welcome you all, and we're looking forward to an inspiring evening together. And so if Richard or Paul, if one of you guys would like to start, and then I'll jump in when you two guys are finished.
Richard.
Paul, how you doing?
I got you. I'll say it first.
Yes, welcome.
Age before beauty. Come on.
You're too kind.
How you doing, brother?
Yeah, I'm doing good.
Good.
Well, asking me about, first of all, I just have to make a slight correction. You said I had 2 children. I have 2 great-grandchildren. I have five children and 3 grands and 2 greats. So I just want to let that be known.
Lots of continued joy from all the kids. Thank you for letting me know. Mazel tov.
Yeah, thank you as well. Oh yeah, 91, as Dr. Lazar, you mentioned in the bio, well, the mayor's office called me one night, a Monday night, and said to me, there's something happening in Crown Heights. Do you know what's happening? And I really didn't know. I was coming from the center. The center is in Crown Heights, but we're on the other side. We're close to the Prospect Park. And so he asked me if I could get over there and see what was going on. Well, actually, he didn't call. One of his staff people called. So I immediately.
Richard. No, the guy. I was telling you his name, but go ahead.
Yeah, I tuned on to the I guess it was the 10 o'clock news, and sure enough, it was on there. And I got up, put back on my shoes, and ran over to the 71st precinct. That is our home precinct. And there we found all of the issues that were going on. So we waited for a few minutes, and the mayor arrived. And when the mayor arrived, he came with his team. And of course, the police commissioner, well, actually the commissioner wasn't there at the time, but the deputy commissioner and others. And they gave us a pretty rundown of as what was going on. But the mayor had just came from Kings County Hospital from visiting with the other young man who was stabbed, Yankel Rosenbaum, the young man from the Jewish community. And when the mayor came, he told us, well, I just left the hospital and he seems to be going to be okay. But not long after that happened, we got the word that unfortunately Yankel Rosenbaum had passed. There was a wound that wasn't picked up by the emergency room people or something to that effect. So the whole thing changed, and the mayor asked us to go out on Eastern Parkway. That was where there began to be a gathering of people. So we went out there and we started to talk to both the people, the young people. Ironically enough, I started right across from 770 to speak with some of the young men from the Hasidic community. And then for a little while, then I moved down to Albany to speak to some of the young people from the Black community. And of course, the cops had began to arrive at that point. And so we started to begin to try to broker some sort of movements between the cops and the youth. We didn't want the cops charging after the youth. If that wasn't necessary, we would try first to move them along and get them out of the streets. And then if that didn't happen, then whatever came after that. So that would be that first evening, that first night. Then after that, it was just a matter of us continuously meeting. We met at City Hall the next day. The deputy mayor came out to the community. We met in the school. Mayor Dinkins came out. We met with some of the leadership in the Hasidic community. Actually the night after we went up that Wednesday night, and we met with some of the other leaders up close to 770. And then from that point on, we were just moving. And then they told me of this young man in the Hasidic community who I should try to link up with. Well, I knew Paul. Paul and I had worked together over the years through the Jackie Robinson program. But they told me this other young man by the name of Dr. Laz, who would be a good person for us to connect with. And it was good to have a go-to person in the Hasidic community, and he became the go-to. And then we had our first big meeting at the Brooklyn Museum, actually the Brooklyn Children's Museum. And at that point in time, we all got together in a round room. A lot of people from the community had showed up, cops was there. And we just started to talk. The day before that, we had met at the school, or actually the day after, and some of the young men again from my community and the young men from the Hasidic community, with a long table in the cafeteria. One sat on one side, the other sat on the other side, and they just began to exchange information, well, not information, started to talk about some of the misnomer information that they were getting, that they knew of us, that we knew of them. And then from that point on, we just began to use that as, I used that, and I think Dr. Laz and Paul used that, and later on Yudi and TJ used that as the impetus in which we would talk to each other. And it began at many meetings, many talkings. Young people, not only from here, the last summer I had young people came from Ferguson, which is, you know, Ferguson was the city out in Missouri that had that issue. And they came to hear from us here in Crown Heights, and we met with them at the Brooklyn Jewish Children's Museum, and then we went out and met at the precinct and had a very good discussion. They were very excited about it. And these were Jewish youths. They weren't Hasidic, but they were, many of the youths in the group were from the Jewish community out in Ferguson. So that's pretty much what we've been doing, and we keep doing that same rhythm going with the community. Any chance there's an issue, these great instruments called cell phones, we're able to talk to each other. We know each other's phone numbers. And if there's an issue going on in Crown Heights, I'll get a call, I'll get a text, I'll get some sort of information, and then we'll go from there. And I turn it over to you. You said age before beauty. So beauty went, now age goes.
Get a ball.
Thank you. Hey, TJ really likes that, boy. Look at him, boy. He's really, you made his day.
Yeah.
But
TJ,
yeah,
that's
basically,
Richie
basically summed it up. And I mean, yeah, and that's how we actually came together, except for, I think we met Laz, was my first time meeting Laz. I think it was. No, we met before that. Yeah. But anyway, we called a meeting of various youth. We invited them to come to a meeting where there would be the Hasidic youth and the African American youth. And we met in PS 167. I think
Right.
Richard was an alum from that school.
Right.
And we met in that school and on the first floor, which was like the gym lunchroom kind of situation. And we set up the chairs in a circle. It must have been at least 100 and plus young people, if I'm correct. Yeah, I think that's what we kind of numbered. And we started talking. And the key point of our talking came out as it related to our similarities, the things that we had in common. And there was so much that we had in common that had never, the young people, and many of us hadn't, we've had that conversation, but hadn't had that conversation. And it's pretty much where we could say that we started to talk.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much what's been happening now. People are starting to talk, just like the rabbis and the ministers and community leaders are having these discussions. And the discussions really are unveiling so much that we didn't even know about each other, and we live right next door. And in some cases, we lived in the same complex or the same building. And as a result of that, that changed the whole concept of how we viewed each other. And that's basically how we got started. I would say that we planted a seed then, and that seed is working today. And I feel very comfortable with it because it's almost like a tailored fit situation. And it's not us that's doing it. It's rabbis like you. It's ministers like us. It's street workers like us. It's teachers. It's youth workers, and even other groups are doing it. Now you got to remember that was 29 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't yesterday, and we see the difference. We've seen the difference. We see it. Now, yes, the evil things still pop up, but I tell you, there's a better understanding than we ever had before.
Nice. All right,
Thank
I'm
you,
going
Dr.
to
Lass.
jump in here, Rabbi, just to paint the picture from, from my perspective.
Is that kosher?
Glatt kosher.
Oh, good. Okay, then.
Yeah, so, I think that the environment back in those days, if I could just paint the picture a little bit deeper to kind of give you, all the participants here an understanding of it. And I first heard this example from Richard, who said that the community was really like two ships passing in the night. You pick each other up on the radar. As you come this way, and the radar is going beep, 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 beep. But then you pass each other in safety, very little communication. You breathe a sigh of relief. And so I think like Richard and Paul both said, there had been not so much communication happening, not so much meaningful communication. And so I think what we did when the riots first broke out, and if you would have had a recipe book for an urban riot, I think all of the factors were there. There was a very high unemployment. You have two very distinct minority groups living in the same community, sort of, being thrown breadcrumbs from the powers that be, fighting over housing and, and everything else. And because there was so little communication, that leads to fear, stereotypes, all of those kinds of negative things. And so when I first met Richard and Paul, the decision was made, let's bring our youth together to, because that's where we felt most of the problems were, most of the stereotypes were. And just to paint a little bit of a deeper picture of that first meeting so you can all appreciate it, the African-American young men, Caribbean-American young men were all on one side of the circle. The Hasidic young men were mostly Caucasian, were on another side. And we opened it up, and people started to first ask about just our dress code. What's with the beard, what's with the yarmulke, what's with the white strings at your side, what's with the dreadlocks you wear, what's with the Ankh symbol that some of you wear. And then after that, then I would say all the negative stereotypes came out. That anything that you can possibly imagine, how come you're all wealthy? How come you control the media? You control the police department? How come you're all drug dealers? How come you all hang out on the corner? Why don't you believe in an education? And so all that came out. But then towards the end of the meeting, as Paul said, we began to see that, wow, maybe we're not so different after all. Maybe we do have a lot more in common. And it came out in ways where they got to meet young Hasidic young men at this meeting whose parents lived in rent subsidized housing, whose parents got food stamps, some of them came from single parent homes. And so too, the young Jewish participants, they got, when I say young, we're talking teenagers all the way up to people in their 30s and 40s. And they, I remember one of them raised his hand and asked Richard, he said, Mr. Green, I have to leave because I have a violin rehearsal coming up and I have to go home and practice. And another one said, yeah, I have to leave because I have a test tomorrow. And some of the Hasidic young men sort of snickered and, like, yeah, right. And then they said, what, because I'm black doesn't mean I don't like classical music, doesn't mean I like, and he said something like, I know more about classical music than all you put together. And he was probably right. And so I think I was very hopeful at the first meeting. I just want to end this little part by saying that at the end of, so you know who Richard and Paul are, because they're doers. They're not just, not just talkers. They walk the walk. And for me, it's been an incredible, inspiring, amazing 29 years together. I always look at all of these guys as like they're my brothers from another mother. I would say another mother, but my mom totally loves Paul. She's very close with him. I mean, Richard, don't take it personally, but Paul serenades her, okay? Paul sings her songs. And so at the end of the meeting, we started breaking up, and the mayor's office, by the way, the commissioner had actually blocked the door from the media, would not let the media in. He didn't want it to be a circus, didn't want it to be like just a photo op, which I thought was brilliant. Yeah. He wanted it to be real, and so did we. And so Paul comes up to me and says, Laz, we gotta circle up and say a prayer together. And so I said, with all due respect, Reverend, let's wait till the next meeting, if there'll be one. I wasn't so sure where this was going. And Paul said, no, Laz, I'm telling you, we got to do it now. So I was like, okay, let's go for it. I didn't think it was going to work. And this time, since people had already started to leave their seats, so some of them came back, and some of them were still there talking. And this time they circled up with black and white hands like this because they weren't on different sides. And Paul asked me, do I know the 23rd Psalm in Hebrew? Thank God he picked one of the few that I know by heart. He picked the only one. And so I thank you for my brother for that one. Paul says it in English. I said it in Hebrew. And then we called the meeting. We thanked everybody for coming. And that led to several dialogues, I would say every week or two. A dialogue, we call them dialogues for understanding. That led to basketball games made up of blacks and Jews playing together on the same team, which led to multicultural events together, such as Kwanzaa, Hanukkah. We did a sukkah party together with basically on my block with no Jews allowed, you'll pardon the expression. It was holding my neighbors and folks from Project Cure. And and then we formed a music group. And the whole thing just snowballed. So I will stop with that. Would love to, I see Yudi is here and TJ, and love to get some of their input, now.
And this is fantastic. I just want to point out something that I find, I just want to highlight this because, not everyone knows the dynamic of Crown Heights. Crown Heights is a really diverse community, and you have African-American families and individuals living alongside Jewish, Hasidic, Chabad individuals and families. And it's very, as you said, like it could be in the same building, right? It's not only the same block, could be the same building. And what's incredible is you may never speak to your neighbor. Now, I know this is a thing in general, like, nowadays people don't speak to their neighbors, but it could be that, a Hasidic Jew, a Chabad Jew in Crown Heights would never, just because they didn't, speak to the African-American neighbor and vice versa. And I think that, I'm just going to say this, you guys, stepping up after, in the aftermath, as the dust settled on these riots, to step up and say, listen, we need to start by creating dialogue. We have to first, and if it takes airing out the stereotypes, as Laz, as you said, if that's how we start, well, then that's how we start. But we're going to get past that. We got to start somewhere. I think to me, that's tremendously powerful, because I think a lot of it begins with the fear and the prejudice and the decision that we make, even if we don't say it verbally, the decision that we make inside. They're different than me. Nothing to talk about. I know who they are. Don't want to deal with them. Don't want to have anything to do with them. And that's the beginning of the walls go up and the problems begin. TJ, how old were you when in 1991 when the riots were going down?
Okay, I was 15.
And TJ, tell us how you got involved and how you initially got involved. Were you one of the so-called youth participants in these dialogue meetings? Is that how your participation began?
Actually, no. I got involved through the Crown Heights Youth Collective, actually. I was working with Mr. Green's Summer Youth Employment Program. And one of our assignments was to help do the mural on on Utica Avenue and President Street. And we pull up, and actually Yudi and I were standing side by side, and we just struck up a conversation. Two teenagers, not really, just doing teenage things, and we just struck up a conversation. Hey, my name is Yudi. Hey, what's up? My name is TJ. And through our conversation, Project Cure was brought up, and he said he was looking for a dancer, and he explained the group and what the actual mission statement of the group was about. And I was interested. I was very interested, because I wasn't one of the teenagers that I was blessed. I was blessed to have a strong mom, strong family structure, that I didn't have to be outside and be part of the problem. And I was looking for something like that to actually keep me on the straight and narrow, something that I could do with my time, So fast forward a little bit, I spoke to my mother about him, and I let her know I was very excited, and her and Laz had a conversation. And usually with my mother, a lot of things I wanted to get interested in, you're a teenager, so you want to be in the football, basketball, baseball, and only lasts about a week. So the conversation with my mom only lasts about 10 seconds tops. They spoke for about 45 minutes, okay? And my mother, after they got off the phone, me and my mother had a conversation, and she asked me, is this what you really want to do? And I told her yes. I told her who was going to be involved, behind the scenes that was working with us. And she was like, okay, cool. Excuse me one second. So fast forward a little bit, Yudi and I, we started, doing practices at his house, at my house, hanging out together, going to the pizzeria. This is like not even what, doing Project Cure stuff. This is us just hanging out, and a lot of people, of course, you got the looks, you got the stares, you got the, little whispers or whatever, but it was genuine. You know what I mean? It wasn't just for show. We built a friendship that was genuine, so.
Rabbi, I just wanted to mention that Yudi took his family camping, stopped off in New Hampshire. Yeah, you mention that, TJ.
I will. I was getting to it. I was just seeing if the rabbi had a follow-up question. But, genuine. Like Laz just said, Yudi took his family camping from New York, and on his travels, he stopped by my house yesterday. And we actually spent the better part of the afternoon all the way into the early evening together with his wife Mindy and his son Izzy and his daughter, who's my #1 fan. Yudi, if you're on there, I can never remember your daughter's name. If you're on there, help me out, brother.
Shoshana.
Yep. Shoshana, yes, sir. You know what I mean? And
She's right here. She's right here. She's like she's so happy.
Oh, look at that.
Hey, see? How you doing? So
You
it's
can
like,
speak to the guy.
Hi, TJ.
hey, how are you?
Yeah, I'm going to cut in for a second just to say, Shoshana had to do a report for school, and she chose TJ as the subject of her report. She's been on the
Yes,
phone
do
with
so.
him, talking to him for a while now. They built a really strong friendship as well. It was funny yesterday, we were hanging out, and I was just sort of like taking care of stuff, and they were just talking the whole time. I was just like an outsider.
That's my niece. You know, I mean, that's
Oh, yeah.
real love. I mean, and this is what I'm talking about. This is genuine. You know, this is
I'm
not.
just, I don't want to cut you off. I'm just like, my heart is so filled with this feeling, because what we're talking about here is now the next generation. And we're talking about barriers being broken down and being completely obliterated, and the love coming through from two individuals meeting at a mural, into music and freestyle and rap, and then merging into the next generation, camping trips and interviews. It's truly a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it's a blessing to be experiencing this firsthand. It's really a blessing.
Yuri, tell us about your recollections of the first time you met TJ, and a little bit about some of the collaboration that you guys have had together.
I was working at a mural, and for some reason, I just blurted out. I don't know why. And I said this yesterday.
Uniman.
Losman House. Sorry, that's our thing.
Tradition.
Sorry about that.
Love it.
Ignore. Yeah. So basically, real quickly, I was involved with your probably about the third meeting in, and that for me was a very, very intense experience. But the first time I met TJ, it was a 1-year anniversary. About then, we were working on the mural, and I started talking to him, and just I don't know why I asked him. I told him this yesterday. I said I have no clue why I asked you the question. There's many other people I was talking to. You're the person I asked. I don't know why, but I'm grateful I did. I mean, it's one of the most phenomenal things that's happened to me. I mean, I made a lifelong friend, almost 30 years. It's like, and it's real. Like, I feel like saying it's real is almost like diminishing the fact that this is something. My daughter said yesterday something that was the most amazing thing I experienced. She says, I'm more calm now here with you guys than I'm even in my bed before I fall asleep. It's like, it makes sense to me. I mean, it's just like the world doesn't make sense in general. Here it makes sense for the first time. I can calm down because the craziness around me just doesn't make sense. It's just not normal. Here it's normal. That to me is what it made sense. I asked her today, is it because it makes sense? She goes, I don't know. I just feel that way. It's just, I feel let go of a lot of garbage and I'm free.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I'm very curious about this piece of it. So I understand that after the riots, so you guys get together. So we have Laz, we have Paul, we have Richard, we have the youth group coming together. We have, it sounds like there are initiatives. There's music. We have basketball games. And I love how it's not like one community versus the other, but you're mixing. You're
the Jewish kids would have the Jewish kids would have wiped them on the floor. I'm just kidding.
This, by the way, just because a lot of folks are from Atlanta. I don't know what trash talking. Brooklyn. I mean, that's how you roll. You love the other guy, but you're like, I'll wipe the floor with you. I mean, that's it. Like you're going down. Love you, but you're going down. Anyway, yeah.
I wanted to say something, Rabbi. You mentioned that at the first meeting I went to was a basketball game. It was actually in Olatara, which is a Jewish school in Crown Heights. And I was very nervous. I was attacked during the riots and I was very uncomfortable, but I went there, and what really blew my mind during the game is when somebody got knocked over, before anything happened, they apologized for knocking somebody over, and the person and everybody just went and whoever was close by tried to help the person up. Didn't matter who it was that was knocked over. It was just, oh, I'm so sorry, excuse me. Didn't matter if it was a Jewish guy knocking over a Jewish guy, a black guy knocking over a black guy, Jewish guy knocking over a black guy, or any other way you can think of the combinations. It was, excuse me, I'm sorry. Yeah, let me help you out. It was just, it was like, whoa, like that's not a normal basketball game. Like you knock somebody over, you're running over them. They're on the floor, they're not getting up. You're down, I'm gonna help you up. And that was where I started to be able to, for me, to breathe.
Yuri, how old were you then in 91, 92?
I was 15 at 91. I was 16 at 92.
Got it. Okay, so you guys are the same age. All right, interesting. Listen, that's a young age to come together. It's a very, very special thing. Okay, I want to ask. So the next question, that I'm wondering is, how does this go from kind of a local initiative to something with a little bit of a wider impact and kind of a citywide reach? Because my understanding is that this goes beyond Crown Heights. So I'll just put it out there. And Paul, you want to jump in on this one?
Yeah. Well, as Yuri just said, we had this basketball game maybe months later where we brought the community together. And I say community, it was a city kids, the African-American kids, the Caribbean kids, etc. And they were young people. And when we were there getting ready to play this game, Laz said, hey, I wrote a song. I want you to help me sing the song. I said, what song? He said, I just wrote it. How can I help you sing a song that you just wrote? I don't know what I'll show you real fast. We'll just go over it for a minute. And after being with him for over a year, I kind of knew his, how he moves. You understand? So we did this song, and Reuters was there. Every newspaper, every wire service, they were there. And the thing went national, it went international. And that's what really picked it up. And it became like it was blown up. And as a result of that, we were invited to so many places, as well as still doing a lot of things that we started creating in our community. Richard can tell you about the lot that he had, and we made it a peace garden. But we were invited on the Phil Donahue show, so many evening shows that we were invited as guests. So that kind of pushed it, because by then we were getting national and international questions that people were asking. And then what happened is we were invited by the Knicks, and they wanted to present us with an award. It was the Harmony Award, the Knickerbocker Harmony Award. But they also asked that we would organize a basketball game, which we could play at halftime between a regular Knick game. And at that point that they would award us the award. And we played the game, and we mixed the young people up, which we always did. It wasn't just Hasidic on one side and African Americans on the other side. We were one team playing basketball game. And that really was a turnout. The crowd went wow. And it was a great, and again, here it was, it blew up. It really, as the kid said, it blew up big time. And I think that's why it became such a big thing, Rabbi, that so many people were aware of it. As a result of that, we were invited to Wisconsin. We were invited to South Carolina. We were invited to various colleges. We were invited to Congress. We were invited to the state Senate. So many groups and organizations to do exactly what we're doing today, to promote, not us, but promote that use what you have and use the energies and the talents you have to come together. As Richard said, people live in the same building. They spoke now, because I lived in a building where there were Jewish tenants and my family. But people really did more inviting each other to Shabbos. I've lived in Crown Heights, when that happened, we moved there in the early 50s. And so I had been there quite a few years, by 45 years by then. And it was just a great experience just to see it taking another step higher. Now, let me say this though. We used to call them non-kosher Jews, and they lived in the same building. We did speak. We played games together. We did stuff together. We were in the Boy Scouts together. So that was when the Babbage community, because of the restrictions, they weren't allowed to or experience a lot of the things that we did together with the other Jewish kids. But after this happened, it was on. It was really on, and it was great.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that, because I didn't know about the national press, the international press, the Knicks game. That was Madison Square Garden then, you guys played.
Yes, sir.
That's epic. That's epic. And then to me, though, the clincher was when you give gefilte fish to the whole building, that's it. I mean, at that point, I don't know that you can still hold on any. That dissolves tension and other things as well. But once you go gefilte fish, but
well, we did dreidel too. Now we did games and stuff. We didn't just play basketball. It was a real experience. Trust me.
I love that.
Even going to Shabbos, and all of my years, I was, even with the Jewish friends I have, I've been to bar mitzvahs, but I was never invited to Shabbos. And this was that experience. It took it to another level, and it made such a difference, even for me.
To me, it sounds like one of the common themes that I'm picking up as I'm learning this story, together with many of us here on this in this event, is there's dialogue, and then there's also shared experiences. And I think that's a very powerful combination when you have that dialogue. So you're breaking down stereotypes. You're looking at the other as a human being, and then you share experiences, whether it's music, whether it's basketball, whether it's Shabbat dinner, whatever it is. But you're sharing experiences. That seems to be a powerful combination. We live right now. I'm not saying anything that is a novel, that's something that we all don't know. We live in a time when there's so much tension right now, racial tension and other tensions.
Yes.
And the question, I think, is how do we take this model or the successes of a program like this, of efforts like this over the last 29 years, and how do we continue to do this, even in our own ways? Does it mean reaching out one-on-one? Come on over for Shabbos, come on over for a basketball game, for whatever it is. Is that, how would we, and this question is open again to all of our panelists. How do we bring this into the modern scenario?
Simple. It's a very simple answer. Just say hello to people. Acknowledge their existence. When you acknowledge a person's existence, you calm energy. People relax. It makes them value. It elevates people. This is the Rebbe's message. And bottom line, it is not like rocket science. The Rebbe was an engineer. He said things that are very practical, that are very crucial at changing things and impactful. When he made a statement, it's not what did the Rebbe say, it's what did the Rebbe mean. It's more what did the Rebbe say. Listen, pay attention. These are the words. This is what he said. Do it. Very simple. And this is really what made the biggest impact. I mean, for me, I get into a cab and an Uber. I put my phone away. I talk to the driver. The idea of man. The name Adam means man. Both. In Hebrew, there's different tenses and different things that mean with it, but it's a masculine, feminine, past tense, future tense, singular and plural. All these things are all one in the same. We're all cells in a bigger body. I like to think of us as atoms in a bigger atom, even though spelled different, but in Hebrew, it's all about the way it's pronounced, not the way it's written. So bottom line, we just have to make a difference by just start talking to people, start listening more than talking, because speech, world's created with speech. And for speech to be effective, somebody has to listen. Because, if somebody's speaking in the woods and there's nobody there, is there anybody speaking?
So I think what Yudi's saying, it's so important. Even the last part, what he said, the world began with speech. It began with a word, and even for me, growing up in Crown, but I live between Crown Heights and Brownsville, which was really a heavily Jewish community also.
My grandfather grew up in Brownsville.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Real quick, where? Do you know where? What street?
I don't know. One of the bigger ones.
Picken Avenue.
Pitkin, yeah, that's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Stone Avenue. Yeah.
No, it was the first.
But that's so important what he said. And for me, even as a minister, to be invited, to 770 for Shabbos, you know what I'm saying? And then, all the other things that came. And likewise, Laz and the other guys in the band, we did the same thing. They went to our churches, of our places of worship. And we did other things, even weddings and bar mitzvahs and my grandchildren. And yes, I also just had my first great-grand last week. So I'm in the club, guys.
Mazel tov,
Mazel tov.
Oh, thank you.
Beautiful. Go ahead.
To add something to also what Yudi brought up and Paul just went into. There were two, I think, really amazing things that we heard from the Lubavitcher Rebbe at that time. And one was when the Rebbe met with Mayor Dinkins. The Rebbe told the mayor that he expressed the sentiment. I don't remember it exactly verbatim, but it's pretty close. Where the Rebbe said, we're not two communities, we're one community under one administration, under one God. And so, when we heard that, that was seen from a very perspective, not necessarily everybody sort of entrenched in their own camp and with their own flags and identifying with this group and that group. But I think the Rebbe really saw us as one incredible, diverse family of humanity on the planet. And so he said, we're one community. So I think that became one of our mottos. And then the mayor, I first started hearing the increase the peace from the mayor. So we took that one as a motto for our group. And then the last thing I just wanted to mention, what I think Yudi was getting at was, shortly after the riots, there was somebody who went to speak to the Rebbe, and he said, I can arm every Jew in Crown Heights. I will bring in arms. And so because you guys don't know how to fight. You Lubavitchers are all about love. I always call you guys the Beatles Hasidim. All you need is love. You bring love to the world, light to the world, and and peace, and and harmony. You guys are like the Beatles Hasidim. So he said, I can arm every Jew and blah, teach you guys how to fight. And so the Rebbe I heard the story from the guy who he called, who was in JDL, the Jewish Defense League, who called me. So I got the story the very next day after this happened. And the Rebbe told him there'll be no violence perpetrated in my name. And so then this individual said to him, well, what's your idea to make Crown Heights a better community? Sort of like gave him an attitude. He was upset that the Rebbe turned his offer down. And the Rebbe told him those 5 words that Yudi mentioned. The Rebbe told him, say hello to your neighbors. And so when this guy from JDL called me, he said that this guy thinks your Rebbe is the most naive person on the planet. You're talking about two communities, all this heat and hostility going on and tension. And the Rebbe is saying, say hello to your neighbors. But I realized if the Rebbe said it, there's got to be something powerful to it. And to me, I took it as a call for action that, we're always talking about Mashiach coming, the Messianic era, the age of Aquarius, whatever you want to call it, peace and love and good harmony for all of humanity on the planet. And that's a big thing in Chabad. Everybody's talking about Mashiach now. And the Rebbe, I think, was saying to think globally, but to act locally. And
Yeah.
so I decided I'm going to do that with people on my block who I never said hello to, because I had this stupid stereotype in my head that they're looking at me with some sort of negativity, but really it was all in here. And I started saying hello to some African Americans on my block who I never said hello to. And the community just changed. It turned around the culture on my block. And I wanted to mention also that from just us coming together and the things that we did, we started to change the culture in Crown Heights, which was, like Richard said before, the two ships passing in the night. And now people would stop and talk to each other. People would go to each other's, family events. I don't know if Shmuley Andruzier came on tonight, but when he became engaged, Henry Rice, who was African-American, who we met at one of our dialogues, came to his l'chaim, his engagement party. And, when he came running up the steps, all the people were in the kitchen, their mouths fell open like, help, what's going on? And then he sees Shmuley, the two of them give each other a big hug. That's changing the culture of a community.
That's huge. That's huge.
Huge.
But you're
You know,
right.
Rabbi,
It begins with one conversation, one dialogue, one hello. Yeah, Paul.
yeah, it's interesting. My first grandchild went to school in Atlanta. Actually, she attended Spelman and then Clark Atlanta. She graduated and she's still there. My granddaughter has been hosting this type of event. She's been doing Zoom conversations around what's been happening. She's been organizing events and she would send me this stuff and I said, wow. And she was a little girl then, do you understand? And just to see her involved like this. And so to this evening, she just hit me and saying that she was on this chat. And I said, oh, I saw a little thing, but I didn't know. And I'm not trying to blow her up, but I am so proud of her that the experience that she had and her dad had, I see it just like Yudi's daughter, you understand? They catch hold of it. It's like a song. If it has a hook, you may not remember any other parts of the song, but you'll remember that hook. It's like Laz couldn't remember that 23rd song, but he knew the hook, and that's what helped him remember the rest of it,
But listen, we don't want to call him out because before he said that was the one he did remember. So I'm just saying, we don't like. Paul, I just want to say this. I would say that she's got a great role model to look up to. So you got to take some credit. You got to take some credit for that because, as we say, kol hakavod, all props to you for what you do. But you just spoke about music, and I think that it feels like the right time. We have a lot of musical talent right here, right now. You guys want to break? And I know Zoom, if you have two mics on at the same time, it becomes a little bit complicated to.
Leaving now.
We can start it off. We start off, have everybody jump in.
Leaving right now.
But I just want to give a shout out to Akbar 7. You are here.
Raymond Akbar, yeah.
Yeah, can you just unmute him for a sec?
Absolutely. I just asked him to unmute. So as soon as he's ready.
So Laz, Rabbi, I'm going to leave because I have to go.
1 second, Brother Paul, before you go.
Hello. I'm still here. I said I have to go pick up my son.
Let me start you off with, oh, say, and
can you
see
communication across the nation? Let's all sit down and
have a conversation. You understanding, TJ? You got to unmute, brother.
I'm going.
You understanding?
I listen to you. You listen to me. We could work things out in harmony.
Uniman, respect.
Respect each other's feelings. Respect who you are. Respect each other's cultures, and we'll all go far.
All together, E for education.
A point of elevation.
Keep on going.
Even after graduation.
Even after graduation. That's C-U-R-E, by the way. That's the cure.
I got that. That's
Okay,
awesome.
so,
That is
all right, hold
awesome.
on. Let me just say one thing real quick. That actual little thing we just did was actually created on the way home from a gig. We were all in the van and we were all just chopping it up, just talking. And we legit, literally came up with that song in the van on the way home from a gig.
Yeah, we got that creative juices flowing. Rabbi, I wanted just to hear from Richard because I don't want to lose Richard. I know he's busy as well, heading off somewhere. Richard, you still on?
Oh yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah. You hear me?
Brother Richard.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Yeah. Oh, good. Can you just, because Rabbi, you had asked about like how some of those things that we did back then and are currently doing, how they might apply today. Well, Richard is, he's out on the streets and he's still doing that kind of work. So I think his insight, would be very valuable on this.
Yeah, we're still doing a lot of that work, talking to the young people, having them kind of understand what's going on around them, because many of them are confused with the things that are happening. It's happening so quickly. So we're there trying our best to just translate the times to them, and based on how we worked things out in '91 and kept working it out, even though each year we did something in terms of bringing the communities together. So right now, as we see what's going on, I use a lot of the very same momentum of people in the neighborhood, which we gained, and I'm thinking about you, Rabbi, saying he wasn't 12 years old, but those people now who are 12 years old at that time are adults now, and they're parents, they're rabbis, they're teachers. So we call it, I call it pollination. It's like we pollinated this movement to people, and then they took it on. They began to take it on. Music, my son is a musician, and I think last he played, my son and your son got together.
Yeah.
And did
played some percussion stuff, big time.
Percussions together.
Yeah.
So we're pollinating, and the things that we do, and I'm still getting calls. You see, anything that's happening, I'm hearing it right here. When the marches are coming into the neighborhood, I get a call from the precinct, or get a text telling me, well, the marches are coming, and I put my mask on and I go out and I kind of watch how things are moving, and sort of just without actually telling them, don't do this, don't do that, just kind of looking and kind of giving them, and they know me from the past. And as a matter of fact, just the things today, I went to get my car inspected, the garage on East New York Avenue. You remember that, the mechanic shop in the Hasidic mechanic shop. So I'm there I'm there waiting to get my car inspected, and a lady comes in, she's coming in for service, and we began to talk, and I took out my picture of me and the Rebbe and showed it to her. She was like amazed, She says, wow, you actually met the Rebbe. I says, yes, and the story goes, I went to Africa 3 months later, and I met a Rebbe in the Gambia. So that's the kind of conversations we keep having. We keep hearing, and I still talk to both Shemira and Shurim. Those are the two patrols. I talk to both of them, and they have respect for me, and I have respect for them. There's like, we're still part of the cure with the two groups in the community. So, I think working together as we did in '91, it's still very relevant today. And we have the great technology to utilize, like what we're doing right here, to bring this message across, not only across the city, but across the globe in terms of what we're doing.
It's amazing. I was about to share my screen. I was about to share the screen with that picture. You know what? Hold on. We're on the same page, Les. I love this. All right, hold on. Here we go. Check us out. Check out this picture. I'm about to share my screen. All right, can you guys all see that? Is that the same picture?
That's it. Yeah, that looks better than the one I was going to show.
Right, that's the one that you sent me. Richard Green, Dr. Laz with the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and that's a special picture. That's a special picture.
Our beards were a little darker back then.
Yeah, I hadn't dyed it platinum yet.
No, it just means that, missing the wisdom that's yet to come. Can you tell us about that meeting? What happened? Laz, did you set that up?
Well, actually, Richard called me to invite my wife and I, Gittel and I, to his, I believe it was his daughter's birthday party. And then I said, Richard, we've been talking about it for several months. Let's go to the Rebbe and meet the Rebbe face to face. So Richard, he said, well, how long do you think it'll take? So my ulterior motive was, I know if I show up with Richard, we're going to get in earlier. We don't have to wait in that big long line, because Richard will be treated like an important guest. And me, I'm just like a typical Jewish guy from the neighborhood. So and then Richard, again, folks, so you will know who you're dealing with here. Richard, I don't know if you remember this, but this left a profound impression on me. You said, oh, Laz, I'm so glad you told me now, because I was just about to sit down and have something to eat and drink. I was going to have breakfast, but I want to go to a holy person fasting. And so that really made a huge impression on me, because, living in Crown Heights, you sometimes you take for granted, who the people are, who the Rebbe is, and and at any rate, we met there, and sure enough, we got there. Somebody came out, one of the Rebbe's secretaries, told us to come to the head of the line, and there were three teenagers from, I believe, from the youth collective that Richard had brought, and the Rebbe spoke to us in English, of course. I have video footage of that somebody sent me of our meeting with the Rebbe, which Richard called historic. And Richard, why don't you describe a little bit of what that meeting was all about? When
he found out, it's funny, when the Rebbe asked about me, what did I do? And someone whispered to him that I was the person who had brought the communities together to sit down and talk. So the Rebbe called me back and gave me another $1. So he gave me $2. So they said, oh, that's a very important moment, that he not only gave you $1, he gives everybody, but he called you back and gave you another one. And the Rebbe was just a very...
He said, by the way,
everything
he said in English, Richard, double benediction in all the activities.
Everything you do from this day on will flourish. And I always remember that. Like I said, when I went to Africa, 3 months later, I met a holy man there. He said exactly, almost in verbatim, the very same words to me. So the Rebbe was a very important moment, in terms of my spiritual journey. He gave me a lot of insight. And as I said, as a 10-year-old, I lived diagonally across the street from 770 on Kingston Avenue, 289 Kingston. That's my first address coming to New York. And on the Shabbats, I would stand there and look out my window and just observe the cultural exchanges of the people on Eastern Parkway going across the street to the 770. So it's been a very special experience for me.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And a very, very special experience, I'm sure, meeting the Rebbe. And we're very grateful that you're taking us into that moment. Just, I was mentioned a few times, just want to make sure that everyone knows what 770 is. Okay, first of all, it's a number, but it's also the address of the Chabad Lubavitch World Headquarters in the main synagogue in Crown Heights, corner of Eastern Parkway and Kingston Avenue, right there. Very large building, 770 Eastern Parkway. So in Chabad circles and in Crown Heights, it's known as 770. You don't have to say Eastern Parkway. Everyone knows what 770 is. In Atlanta, it's a little bit different, because 770 could be an area code, but that's just too complicated. 770 though is the synagogue.
And it's like the Vatican of your community.
Yeah, it's the place. It's definitely the place. I was thinking this, as we talk about the idea of, just reaching out and just saying hi and say hi to a neighbor. We live in times when it seems like there's it's like a powder keg, right? And so something happens and the first reaction is kind of like a very hostile reaction. And this is true when it comes to race relations, but it's true in many different areas right now in society, that things seem to escalate from kind of 0 to 100 really quickly. And maybe that moment for kind of thought and dialogue and thoughtful approaches and communication, maybe it doesn't seem like there's a lot of time for that to happen. How would you guys suggest that happen? Is it about education, about everyone just educating themselves and their families, slow it down, dialogue before we jump into things, before we escalate? What would you suggest on a very practical note as far as, how to integrate these ideas in today's time?
Yeah, I think if I could just jump on this one and then turn it over to some of the other guys. By the way, if my holy brother Akbar 7, just wave hello, man. Great to see you, my brother. That's a holy brother right there. He, I first saw him in a one-man play, I think, and he was absolutely phenomenal. Wow, you were something else, man. So keep up the good work. God bless you, and I'm so happy you're here because we need you. We want to hook up, and he's very creative. He just uses the arts to reach people and to bring people together, and he's really these positive, inspiring ways. So thank you for coming, my brother. Great to see you. Much love. One love. So I just wanted to say that, and I think this might be part of the answer for today. Like when you said, when things just escalate and people are just in each other's faces and yelling, and Yudi made mention of this, and we only had really two quote unquote rules. We didn't there was no, when Richard and I first met, we didn't know what we were doing. We had no idea other than let's bring people together. But we did agree on two rules. One was we agreed to disagree. And the second one is that we agree that it's important to listen to other people. And in other words, even if you don't like what they're saying, just listen. And I remember, Richard, I don't know if you probably remember this. One time we had a meeting that was at the public school diagonally across from the precinct on, in Crown Heights, right, on Empire.
Yeah.
And so people just yelling at each other from both communities, that the police came in and they said, okay, your meeting's over. This is going nowhere. And they were right. They broke up the meeting. Everybody left. And I remember we, Richard, Paul, and I don't know if TJ and Yudi, I don't know if you guys were there, but we met and we said, let's just meet on the sidewalk. Yeah. Whoever wants to stick around and stay in dialogue, let's do it. And there was a young African-American who was a member of the Nation of Islam. And he said, you know what, I want to talk to you. I said, okay. And so he started to speak. And I wanted just to share this story with you because I think this, to me, it was an eye-opener. And he spoke, I kid you not, for between 10 and 15 minutes straight. And to me, at times, he sounded like a tape recorder, whatever. One of our rules was you just, ferme la bouche, close your mouth and listen. And that's what I did. And after about 15 minutes, I said to him, are you done? And he said to me, yeah. I said, well, I would like to respond to a couple of points you raised. And he said to me, before you do that, he says to me, I just want to give you a hug. And I was like, okay. He gives me a hug and he says to me, you are the first white person that ever listened to me. Mm. And so can you imagine that? Here we're thinking, I'm thinking, oh man, I'm like, this Orthodox religious Jew, whatever. Here's a guy from Nation of Islam. The media is saying we are enemies. If this guy just gave me a hug on Empire Boulevard in Crown Heights, why? What did I do? All I did was listen, So I think it sounds simple, but I mean, I am encouraging dialogues between Black Lives Matter and the police, just to listen to each other and not to start, somebody yells, keep listening, just listen and see what happens. I mean, sometimes there's a lot of good things that come as a result of just listening. And so now I will close my mouth and listen.
I think I just want to say I'm touched. I'm continuously, just blown away by all of your experiences, and by that last point as well, the idea of, how many of us would have, if we were on the other side of that conversation, would have felt uncomfortable, would have felt, we want to get out of there, or, I don't need to listen to this, that sort of thing. But to be able to be open enough and respectful enough to listen, and that broke down barriers to the point where you're embracing. It's pretty special.
Can I add something? I would like to empower every person at this meeting. I want to empower you to make a change in the world. Continue where we are, because we're only 4 people and there's only so much we can do, or 5 people or 6 people or 10 people that are at this meeting. There's more of us, but be a part of us. Go out there and start talking to people, listen to people, just randomly say hello to people. That's all I ask. And I empower you to be a part of what we're doing just by talking to people and listening to people. You'll see open miracles in your life and connections in ways you couldn't imagine. And it's humbling and uplifting, and I can go on and on. I mean, I had a story of this last night. I'm camping out in New Hampshire in the woods, and this guy that was next to me for a couple of days wouldn't say a word to me. I came back from seeing TJ last night, and it was pouring by us, and we pulled up and we saw their whole campsite was totally submerged in water, and they lived 20 minutes away. We found out, and we talked to him today as he was packing up. And we just, I told him how sorry I felt for what happened. He's like, I only live 20 minutes away. It's not so bad. And we had a conversation. He sent me a message already. I don't have service where I'm at in the woods. I'm out right now sitting in a Target parking lot so I can be at this meeting. But then I'm going back into the woods.
You rock, buddy.
I roll too. But honestly, tension dissolves when you could just listen to people, because and I want you all to be empowered, and I want you all to go and to just live your life. But put the phone away for 5 minutes. You get into an Uber. You get online. Don't pull out your phone. Say hello to the clerk. Call a doctor. And they say, Dr. Turner's office. How are you? Wait for an answer. Watch how shocked people will be. I'm good. How are you? Seriously? I'm a musician. You know why I'm a musician? Musicians have to learn to listen. Music's about listening, not about speaking. The words you don't say more than what you do say. And that's exactly the same point that we're trying to bring out. The impact you have is so powerful because you listen, hear another person. You know what? Even if their opinion is different than yours and opposite, you disagree completely. You know how many times I've had conversations that I've walked away saying, thank you so much. I learned this point from you. I disagree with everything else you say, but something I walked away with, I'm a better person for this conversation. And I can tell you many times. Every time I talk to my wife, no, I'm just kidding. I
don't want you guys I don't want you to get in trouble. But no, great points. Thank you, by the way, for your dedication for the going out to Target to be here with us. I'm very, very thankful for that. One last question, and then we'll look through some of the questions and allow people maybe to spend another 5 minutes of asking. But one last question from me. Dr. Laz, in your book, Sharing Turf, you write about the Scouts principle of leaving a place better than you found it. How does it relate to what we're talking about here and to the Jewish notion of tikkun olam?
You're asking a tough question there, Rabbi. It's funny because, I grew up with, like Paul said, he was in a scout troop. I was also in one, and loved going to it, and loved going to Boy Scout camp. And the big thrill was, of course, doing dances with the Girl Scout camp that was a few miles down the road. But it taught me that principle of you're supposed to, like, the practical thing was when you would come to a campsite, let's say, and this happened to me on a canoe trip several times. You come to this island after canoeing and you're exhausted. The last thing you want to do is look for wood. And then you go to there's a fire pit on the island and there's a stack of wood waiting for you. I mean, come on, that's beautiful. So my scoutmaster said, we cooked and everything. And then we cooked and had breakfast in the morning. We're getting ready to pull away. And he says, you're not pulling out of here just yet. Just how we were left a stack of wood. Now we're going to go out and collect wood and leave a stack of wood for the next group or next people that come along. So I think that's, it's a very practical lesson. I always feel it's, in general, we should, when we come into the world, we're all sort of invited guests, and we're all, we're all here for a good reason. We're all important, each and every one of us. I think the beauty of Torah and, the Bible, how it says we're all created in the image of God Almighty. So that means each and every one of us have this spark of divinity, which I think if we would realize that, and myself included, what I say is I'm talking to myself. If we were to perceive that, we would see everyone is like amazing as this, spark of the divine. And so, like Yudi just mentioned, we wouldn't waste our time, looking up stupid things on our cell phone. We would talk to the person in front of us or behind us in the line at Walmart, or, say hello to the person, from the bank who's calling or whatever. It's a different ballgame. So I think it's, I find that to be one of the beautiful principles of not just scouting, but it's sort of a deep principle in the Torah, this notion of tikkun olam, that we're here really to help improve the world. And, Perkei Avot, the Ethics of the Fathers, has this beautiful thing. It's not up to us to finish the job, right? But we're not exempt from working on it. So we might, like there was one time this dirty garbage lot in Crown Heights filled with broken bottles and tires, and it was a community eyesore. And for months, I was trying to find who the owner was. And Richard and I, we were planning, and Paul, to get together with all the guys to make a peace garden there. And I remember, welcome back, Paul. Woo. So I remember I said to, Richard calls me, he says, Laz, I'm bringing my guys. We've waited long enough. I'm coming in Sunday. We're going to clean up the lot. We're going to bag up all the broken bottles and the garbage stuff. We're going to plant trees, some flowers. We're going to do an art mural project in there. So I said, but Richard, what happens if the owner complains? And he already said to me, he said, he complains, we'll throw the garbage back in. But it was this awesome attitude. Richard, I haven't been there in over a year. What's the status with that garden? What's going on there?
Still there. It's not a garden. It's a funny thing you should mention that, because if you remember, the last group said they were going to come in and build on it. And that's when we stopped. But we planted an apple tree, if you remember, in the corner.
So you are going to listen to me.
And the apple tree is still growing. It's still there. Every year you go by, you'll see the apples coming out on it. So that's like a symbol. And they never did any building on the lot. It just
that's the peace garden.
Yeah,
they can build that.
Built on it. It like just stayed, and it stayed clean because we really cleaned up and took almost the heavy waste out of there. And
where is that? Where is that in Crown Heights?
It's on the corner of Union and Albany.
Oh yeah.
Union.
Yeah.
You told me something about with that garbage truck, right?
Oh yeah. The garbage truck we got to come and pick up the garbage. It was just so much garbage in there. I've never seen it happen before. That the sanitation workers were trying to get the garbage in the truck, and the lift just broke. It broke, and the worker said, "Don't worry about it. We're gonna get this out of here. We'll figure out a way. If we get to tow the truck, we'll get it out of here with this garbage out here." So they were able to take it away, and it was just a real powerful moment. And the mural we did in that garden, if you remember, that was the mural you took. You all went on I didn't get to go on to the Israeli parade in Manhattan. You remember you all took that mural on the back? We put it on the back of a pickup truck or something.
Was it on a big float? Yeah.
Big float.
That that mural was in every major New York City parade for the year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So go ahead. What?
No, I just, like I said, that garden was like we had, when the Navy came in May, you know, the time they had that big Navy movement, they came in and worked with us in the garden. And one Friday, the young Hasidic men were coming out from they had a half a day school on Friday, and they were coming by the garden. They saw us in there, and we were trying to invite them in to come and hang with us, the youth from the school now. They were all in there still dressed. And they stopped and they looked and they came in. And they became part of the garden. And I think I have a picture somewhere of them in there, still in their garb, coming from school and in this garden with us.
Amazing.
Beautiful, beautiful. I respect all of our panelists, all of our guests, Dr. Laz, Richard, Paul, TJ, Yuri. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for coming into our community and really lighting up our community and lighting up our lives and inspiring us with your story, with your commitment, with your accomplishments, and with your vision for a nicer place to live in for all of us, which is a good thing. If you guys have another maybe 3 minutes or 4 minutes to do some Q&A, some questions, I'll quickly pull up the chat and I'm going to take a quick look. I'm going to look through the chat very quickly. Okay, for one question that's coming up from Ray Menachbar. Dr. Laz, are you working on any other dramatizations of the story on film or stage?
I think I responded to my brother and said, we need you. Can you unmute, Raymond?
There you go. Yeah. Greetings, everyone. Thank you, brothers. This is such a beautiful, beautiful gathering, and I'm so fortunate to be invited to participate. My dear brother, Dr. Laz, and I are both share the fact that we're both slave servants of the Most High, serving dutifully and obedient, and that's I think that's what we recognize in one another, and that's our bond of love comes from that. So thank you for that, and of course, you know, my life is in story, you know, and poetry. So I'm curious. One movie, you know, Howie Mandel ought not be the only person to have the pleasure of playing Dr. Laz. I mean, you know, with the advent of Hamilton, I mean, now
I do a much better job, brother.
I think we're ready for this story to be told again and again, night after night. That's the power of stage, 8 shows a week. And that's when we really begin to transform the conversation about peace and about relationships and about how you really take a community that wants to murder one another and transform them into a community where the harmony can emerge. And like that apple tree you said, dear brother, that apple tree is such a powerful, powerful reality, right? And then that reality, of course, is a metaphor, because that's the way the all, you know, creates. So it's really, really powerful. And so that's why I asked you, Dr. Laz, let's definitely talk. You and I will, you know, I love talking to you, so let's have a conversation. Anything I can do or say to advance that conversation, I'm here for you.
I got 2 tickets. I got 2 tickets for the first show. I'm lining up now to get them. I'm right there. I'm going in for it. Hotter ticket than Hamilton, I'm telling you. First.
Raymond Akbar 7, he gives, when his performances will knock your socks off. I'm telling you, they are powerful. So God bless you, my brother, and wishing you great success. And I think what we'll do is we'll have a conversation, and then we'll have the group conversation with all the all the holy brothers and sisters from Cure, and we'll we'll move on it. I think it's a beautiful idea because, you know, one of the things that, especially with Paul and I, we have a frustration with the Crown Heights movie because it was Hollywood, you know, and Hollywood, you know, they put in all their shtick. So I think you would do a much better job.
Hollywood's okay, but Akbar is like, that's where we want to be. All right. I think I looked through the chat. I saw a lot of thanks and a lot of gratitude and a lot of love and a lot of positive takeaways. And I want to share my love for you guys. Thank you for being here with us. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for loving. Thank you for not giving up on the dream. Thank you for not giving up on, I wouldn't call it even a dream, on the reality that we do belong together. Thank you for doing what it takes. Thank you for being here to inspire all of us to keep on fighting for love, because that's what we need to do.
Rabbi, could we do, if you don't mind, just to give each one of the panelists like 60 seconds just for some closing remarks?
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay.
Because
you moderate this. Call on the guys.
Paul, well, let's start with Paul because he left, but he's so devoted. He left, he came running back to jump back in here. So come on. These guys are amazing. Okay, Brother Paul, you ready? You got to unmute, Paul.
Thank you, Rabbi, for hosting this. And I hope this isn't the last. I hope it's the beginning of more and more and more. And remember, together we can move mountains. Alone, we can't move it all. And the Rebbe said this. He said, one God made us all. And that's how we have to look at this. Thank you.
Wow.
Shalom, Shabbat.
Brother Richard. Richard's still here? Richard, you still here, my brother?
I don't see him. No, I think he just jumped off.
All right, how about TJ?
Yes, sir.
All right, TJ. Share with us, my brother.
Okay, I'm sorry. Let me flip my screen. I'm sorry. Okay. 60 seconds closing remarks. Look within yourself. You can't help anybody, and you can't be a positive influence or a positive light for somebody if you don't look at it within yourself.
Good.
Look at the qualities. Look at your, look at what you can bring, the qualities, the positive qualities that you have, and what you could bring to the world. And that will blossom, and that will flourish, and that will basically be like a positive energy that will just spread. So just look within yourself, like Yudi said, and like all the other Laz, Paul, Mr. Green, just be positive with your neighbors. Don't be afraid to talk. Don't be afraid to just smile and just say, hey, and yeah, that's it. That's pretty much it.
Nice. Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yudiman, you are devoted too, my brother. Going to a parking lot so you can get some service.
Yeah, then we're going back out to the woods. I hope my tent this time is not flooded. Oh, my neighbor's tent was flooded last time. I'm above ground a little bit, but yeah. So, yeah, Izzy. My son's like, yeah, we're going back camping. You don't have to be in the middle of a war zone. You don't have to be, you can be in the middle of the woods camping. You can still have a conversation and listen to people. You can be anywhere. As long as there are people there, you can have a conversation. If you miss the opportunity, I mean, like I said, there's 8.5 billion atoms in this planet, they say, and whenever 2 out of 8.5 billion atoms meet in a bigger body, shouldn't that be a moment to celebrate? What better way to celebrate than uplifting another person? I can't think of anything better. You're all empowered. We give you the strength. Go out there and make a change in your world. Be the change you want to see. That's all I have to say. Because if you don't like things, the Rebbe told somebody that said to him, Or I want to take my kids out of your school because your schools have these problems. That Rebbe said, if you see a problem, you have an obligation to make a difference. If something's bothering you, you have an obligation to do something about it. So you're all empowered. Get up or sit down. Call somebody. Talk to somebody. Look at somebody and say, hi, how are you? How's your day? That's simple. And you will change your world. And theirs as well. You'll be surprised. There's stories about people on the way to commit suicide, and somebody said hello to them, and it changed their life. And, you know, there are many stories you can find all over the place, especially with an internet full of things like that. So honestly, you have no idea what type of difference you're going to make. And if somebody throws garbage at you, listen, people have hard days. People have hard times. I know I've dumped on people. You know, we're all garbage trucks sometimes. We all have, you know, garbage we have to let go of. And you could feel bad for a person. And, you know, maybe try to make them smile if you feel like you want to make a difference. Make them smile. Say something nice about them. You know, your hair looks great. Or you have such a great, I like the way you express yourself. You really bring the point out so clearly. You didn't fight with them at all. You just empowered them. You just gave them. How can somebody scream at you when you just told them that they make their point so clearly? Yeah, so yeah, I'm gonna. It's the end of the conversation. So, love you all. Seriously.
Thank you, Yudiman. Yudiman. All right, so I got to end like this. I'm just gonna, when I say something, you could just, I'm gonna give you the PEACE, and just when you hear me say that, just say increase the peace. All right, let's try it. PEACE.
Increase the
Increase
peace.
the peace.
Locally, PEACE.
Increase the
Increase the
peace.
peace.
Communally, PEACE.
Increase the
Increase the
peace.
peace.
Nationally, PEACE.
Increase the peace.
Globally,
Globally.
PEACE.
Increase
Increase the peace.
Universally, PEACE.
Increase the
Increase the peace.
Naturally.
Can I add one thing? PEACE. Increase
Yes.
the peace internally.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, yeah.
Nice.
I think Yuri wants to graduate.
What can I do? I
Excellent.
hung out with a minister and a rabbi. You expect any different?
Thank you. Rabbi, thank you for hosting this. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you all for joining. I want to wish everybody a good night. I want to echo what Yuri said. Yuri, we love you too, and love all of you here. Let's keep on spreading the love. Dr. Laz, love you for putting this together. Thank you.
And Rabbi,
soon. Yes.
my only suggestion.
Yeah.
My suggestion is you bring up the Project Cure group to Atlanta. We'll rock the house for you.
There it is.
Let's
There
talk
it
about
is.
it. I love it. Let's increase the peace.
We'll rock the house.
Do it. Let's talk.
Okay, cool. We got a hot band.
All right.
All right.
Okay.
Awesome.
Much
Peace,
love,
everyone.
Oh, one
Much
second.
love.
Rabbi, I forgot to tell you this.
Yeah.
Paul's mother, God bless her, she made these vests. One for me and one for Paul, the one that Paul's wearing. And so you talk about something special. Wow.
Love
Right?
that. Love it.
Love that. Thank
Love
you.
guys. All
Peace.
right.
Peace, Rabbi. Peace,
Peace.
everyone.
Talk soon. All right. Everyone stay well.
You
And,
also.
Increase the love. We'll see you guys. Have a good night.
Guys.
All right. Thank you.
Thank
Peace.
you.